Welcome back to Grimm Advice with Gretta Myers. You've entered the grimoire. Let's turn the page together. So, today's is called Fowler's Fowl. So it sounds like it's about birds, but it could not be. So here's a special appearance from my cat. Either way, say hello. Okay, you can leave. Alright, without further ado, I'm going to dismiss my camerawoman because this is take 2, and I realized there is stuff that happens, so leave. Come back later. Spook warning. Here we go. Without further ado, Fowler's Fowl. There was once a wizard who used to take the form of a poor man and went to houses and begged and caught pretty girls. No one knew where he carried them, for they were never seen again. One day he appeared before the door of a man who had 3 pretty daughters. He looked like a poor weak beggar and carried a basket on his back as if meant to collect charitable gifts in it. He begged for a little food, and when the eldest daughter came out and was just handing him a piece of bread, he barely touched her and she was forced to jump into his basket. Then he hurried away with long strides and carried her away into a dark forest to his house, which stood in the midst of it. Everything in the house was magnificent. He gave her whatever she could possibly desire, and said, "My darling, you will certainly be happy with me, for you have everything your heart can wish for." This lasted a few days, and then he said, "I must journey forth and leave you alone for a short time. There are the keys of the house. You may go everywhere and look at everything except in one room, which this little key here opens, and I forbid you to go there on pain of death." He likewise gave her an egg, and said, "Preserve the egg carefully for me, and carry it continually about with you, for a great misfortune would arise from the loss of it." She took the keys and the egg, and promised to obey him in everything. When he was gone, she went all around the house, from the bottom to the top, and examined everything. The room shone with silver and gold, and she thought she had never seen such great splendor. At length she came to the forbidden door. She wished to pass it by, but curiosity let her have no rest. She examined the key. It looked just like any other, and she put it in the keyhole and turned it a little, and the door sprang open. But what did she see when she went in? A great bloody basin stood in the middle of the room, and therein lay human beings, dead and hewn to pieces, and nearby was a block of wood with a gleaming axe lay upon it. She was so terribly alarmed that the egg which she held in her hand fell into the basin. She got it out and washed the blood off, but in vain. It appeared again in a moment. She washed and scrubbed, but she could not get it out. It was not long before the man came back from his journey, and the first things which he asked for were the key and the egg. She gave them to him, but she trembled as she did so, for he saw at once by the red spots that she had been in the bloody chamber. "Since you have gone into the room against my will," said he, "you shall go back into it against your own. Your life is ended." He threw her down, dragged her there by her hair, cut her head off on the block, and hewed her into pieces, so that her blood ran on the ground. Then he threw in the basin with the rest. "Now I will fetch myself the second," said the wizard, and again he went to the house in the shape of a poor man and begged. Then the second daughter brought him a piece of bread. He caught her like the first, by simply touching her, and carried her away. She did not fare better than her sister. She allowed herself to be led away by her curiosity, opened the door of the bloody chamber, looked in, and had to atone for it with her life on the wizard's return. Then he went in and brought the third sister, but she was clever and crafty. When he had given her the keys and the egg, and had left her, she first put the egg away with great care. Then she examined the house, and at last went into the forbidden room. Alas, what did she behold? Both her sisters lay there in the basin, cruelly murdered and cut in pieces. But she began to gather their limbs together, and put them in order, head, body, arms, and legs. And when nothing further was wanting, the limbs began to move and unite themselves together, and both the maidens opened their eyes, and were once more alive. Then they rejoiced, and kissed and caressed each other. On his arrival, the man at once demanded the keys and the egg, and as he could perceive no trace of blood on it, he said, "You have stood the test. You shall be my bride." Now he no longer had any power over her, and was forced to do whatever she desired. "Oh, very well," said she. "You shall first take a basket full of gold to my father and mother, and carry it yourself on your back. In the meantime, I will prepare for the wedding." Then she ran to her sisters, whom she had hidden in a little chamber, and said, "The moment has come when I can save you. The wretch shall carry you home again. But as soon as you are at home, send help to me. She put both of them in a basket and covered them quite over with gold, so that nothing of them was to be seen. Then she called in the wizard and said to him, "Now carry the basket away, but I shall look through my little window and watch to see if you stop on the way to stand or to rest." The wizard raised the basket on his back and went away with it, but it weighed him down so heavily that the perspiration streamed from his face. Then he sat down and wanted to rest a while, but immediately one of the girls in the basket cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I see that you are resting. Will you go on at once?" He thought it was his bride who was calling that to him, and got up on his legs again. Once more he was going to sit down, but instantly she cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I see that you are resting. Will you go on directly?" Whenever he stood still, she cried this, and then he was forced to go onwards until at last, groaning and out of breath, he took the basket with the gold and the two maidens into their parents' house. At home, however, the bride prepared the marriage feast and sent invitations to the friends of the wizard. Then she took a skull with grinning teeth, put some ornaments on it and a wreath of flowers, carried it upstairs to the attic window, and let it look out from there. When all was ready, she dipped into a barrel of honey, then cut the feather bed open and rolled herself in it, until she looked like a wondrous bird, and no one could recognize her. Then she went out of the house, and on her way she met some of the wedding guests, who asked, "Oh, Fowler's Fowl, how come you here?" "I come from Fitz the Fowler's house, quite near." "And what may the young bride be doing? From cellar to garret she's swept all clean, and now from the window she's peeping, I ween." At last she met the bridegroom, who was coming slowly back. He, like the others, asked, "Oh, Fowler's Fowl, how come you near?" "I come from Fitz the Fowler's house, quite near." "And what may the young bride be doing? From cellar to garret she's swept all clean, and now the window she's peeping, I ween." The bridegroom looked up, saw the decked-out skull, thought it was his bride, and nodded to her, greeting her kindly. But when he and his guests had all gone into the house, the brothers and kinsmen of the bride, who had been sent to rescue her, arrived. They locked all the doors of the house, that no one might escape, set fire to it, and the wizard and all his crew had to burn. So yeah, spook warning. That was a deceiving and a half title. I'm gonna put that in the title, spook warning. Oh my gosh. That was grim and a half. Ugh. And so sad. It was sad. Okay, first off, if someone explicitly gives you instructions not to do anything, like him, just specifically, this is the key, don't do it specifically, don't do X thing specifically. A, they're probably hiding something. B, that's probably an important thing for you to know. However, it might not be a safe thing for you to find out. You know? If they're do not look on this social media account specifically, and you're that's oddly specific. Or if they're don't remove my face mask, my half face mask, specifically, maybe don't do it. Especially if you've seen that man is creepy and obsessive. If you understood that reference, I'm proud of you, and yeah, okay. Yeah, seriously, if someone is obviously hiding something, and really doesn't want you to find out, A, if you plan on, continuing to be friends with them, or dating them, or whatever, it's important for you to find out, but it's also important for you to take safety precautions sometimes, if that's, if you do decide to find out. Because as we've seen, sometimes those people get really upset. Really upset. Really upset. And yeah, this is something that could happen. like, maybe they don't kill you, but, like, they could severely hurt you. They could hurt you, like, socially, ruin your reputation. They could, yeah. So be careful if you're gonna try and find out someone's secrets. Secrets are no fun. Okay. Okay. I don't want to really get into whose fault is it. I mean, obviously it's the wizard's fault. Obviously. Like, obviously. Like, that is, hands down, it is his fault. Entirely. Like, it is not the girl's fault. It specifically says they had no choice but to come with him. Because he's magic. And there will be some situations where you feel you have no choice but to do something for someone. Because they've made that clear to you that you have no choice. Or insinuated it and you don't feel safe. And that's their fault. However, the same beggar keeps showing up at your house after daughter disappears. Maybe don't let him in. Like, if you continuously don't feel safe around a person or group of people and bad things keep happening and stuff like that, don't trust them. Don't let them in. And I recognize again that sometimes that's not your choice. Because sometimes those people are really sneaky. And they get you despite precautions. And like this wizard, all he had to do was touch him and he was gone. So. But again, I want to stress, it was not the girl's fault. Any of them. It was the wizard's fault. Even though he tried to make it very obvious, like, oh, you didn't follow my instructions. You didn't follow my instructions. This is your fault. You have to pay. It wasn't. Yeah, that's really all I can say on that matter. He tried really hard to make it seem like it was their fault. But it wasn't. And there are people who will do that. Like, they'll do something, and you'll confront them about it, but then they'll be like, oh, it's your fault because of X thing. It's not. Granted, most situations have, like, fault is not one way or the other, but in situations like this, it absolutely is. Obviously, the girls could have done better. The girl at the end who eventually survived. But is it their fault that they died? No. No, it's not. It is. I wish that I could just. Yeah, it's not their fault. I mean, we all have room to improve. But still, none of the actions were their own, except for opening the door. But everything else, every single other thing, was not their fault. So, it's not their fault. I mean, yeah, I wish I could just say something else, but because I sound like a broken record, but it's true. It's not their fault. Yeah. Like, I realize this has gotten really heavy, this whole story, and my analysis is really heavy, but sometimes that's what you need. Even myself, sometimes nobody likes to be heavy all the time. So I try my best to make sure things aren't heavy all the time, but sometimes I need to be serious. Finally, props to the last girl. She went above and beyond. She saw both of her sisters just completely, like, she had no idea what happened to them. And I'm certain that must have been awful, terrifying. But she didn't let that stop her. She did what she had to do to survive. Even if that was a little embarrassing, covering yourself in honey and then in mattress feathers. But sometimes that's what you gotta do. Sometimes you gotta make it ridiculous and make it completely out there and, like, even funny to survive. Sometimes socially, like, yeah, like if someone's spreading rumors around your back, you spread ridiculous rumors about yourself. So then everyone's like, well, now I don't know what's true. And they're like, yeah, this person's pretty funny. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. So make it, and if it has to be ridiculous, go all out. Make it ridiculous. I'm giving you permission right here, because sometimes when you try to be serious and heavy about survival, it gets you down, and it's hard, and it just weighs so much, and it hurts. But if you throw a little pizzazz, throw a little fun in it, just make it, don't make light of it, but make it lighter. You know, there's a difference. Do that, yeah. Yeah, I give you full permission, unlicensed, unauthorized permission to go ahead and do that. Because you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And that's okay. That's valid. You're valid. Alright, again, I apologize for how heavy that got, but sometimes things gotta be said. So, thank you for joining us for another Happily Ever After, or not so happily ever after. That's up for you to decide, and whatever you decide is valid, because you're valid. You are. You're valid. 100%, 110%. Either way, this is the end for the episode, so tune in later and we can learn more and turn a new page together.